afternoon, everyone. We have the pleasure and honor of having another Joe White talk with the Neuro Club. Professor White was the chair of the Department of Philosophy at CC for over 30 years. Now, unfortunately retired, I had the pleasure of having him as my philosophy teacher, one of the few of the proud. He was a faculty lecturer in '97, nominated for the Board of Trustees for U.S. Professor of the Year in 2015. He has a bachelorette degree in psychology and philosophy, as well as a master's in philosophy and, degree in psychology and philosophy, as well as a master's in philosophy from the University of Calgary and UCSB. He's written many books, as well as he's working on a stage play, The People versus God, a dark comedy. I am intrigued, to say the least. He's also a host and speaker for Santa Barbara Winery Philosophy Series, Wine and Wisdom, which I think I will now be going to. I didn't know that was available. Next in this Wine and Wisdom series is this Saturday, tomorrow, November 3rd, at Temperance Winery on Aristotle's Rationality and Eudaimonia, Living a Good Life, at the Ambassador Flying Goat Winery. So he's a very busy man. We are so lucky to have him here and pick his brain. So I will pass it over to Joe White. All right.
Well, I think what we're going to, one of the reasons I came in today to talk to all of you, how many of you are neuroscience majors? Nobody? One? What kind of club is this? How many are psychology majors? Any philosophy? How many people just walked in and thought there was food? Beer, kegger, right? So I'm kind of hoping, because I'm not here to give you answers to what is probably one of the biggest issues we have today. Now, there was a slide up here about one of the guest speakers you can go visit, said that gene technology is the greatest technology of this era. I think the problem we're going to talk about today is probably one of the greatest problems today. And I think if one of you can solve this problem so that the rest of humanity goes, of course, it's a heliocentric system, right? It's not geocentric. The Earth isn't at the center of the universe. The sun is at the center of a solar system. Life will change. And if you can solve this problem today, you will receive a Nobel Prize. Now, anybody here interested in a Nobel Prize? What do you get for Nobels this time around? Was it like 1.2 million? So if you get $1.2 million, remember, take out 10%, send 8% to me, and 2% to Professor Tolentino, and we'll be happy about this, all right? So this is the big problem. Now, I'll tell you what it does to me. I will start off by saying, my name's Joe. I have issues. I have psychological issues. And a lot of it has to do, well, with the title of this. I'm glad they put this up. But remember, the title is Dreams, Hallucinations, Axons, and Dendrites, right? Oh my. Neuroscience goes bump in the night, right? And so the subtitle then is Phenomenal Consciousness and the Explanatory Gap, which probably means nothing to you at all. But we're going to talk about that because psychologically, I have issues with dreams and hallucinations. How many people here are troubled by dreams? Anybody have troubled dreams? Troubled dreams? Anybody have hallucinations that bother them? Anybody have hallucinations they enjoy when they're on their shrooms out in the forest? None of those. You know what I'm talking about. Or on Del Playa. I guess that still goes on Del Playa. So there are psychological issues, but I also have epistemological issues that I'm trying. And I haven't solved these. I mean, I'm being perfectly honest. I have problems, right? That's why I'm only going by my first name. My name is Joe. I have issues, right? How many people even know what these are? How many people think maybe it's a urinary tract infection? What is it? What's an epistemological problem? Anybody know who the president is? How many people know who our president is? You know the guy? He has epistemological problems. What's an epistemological problem?
Aren't they problems pertaining to knowledge?
Yeah, problems about knowledge, knowing things, right? And one thing that we do know about ourselves is that we're surrounded and embedded in a mass of ignorance, right? All of us are much more ignorant than we are knowledgeable. And if you want to test this, all you have to do is go out at night and look at the night sky. Just name, say, 50 stars. Tell me what their magnitude is, how far away they are. Most of us look up at the sky and go, oh man, that's pretty, right? So we're just total, it's a wonderful moment of ignorance, right? And I also have ontological issues. Oh, these drive me crazy. What's an ontological issue? How many people have ontological problems? You all do. Come on, own it. It's time to be honest. Have we bonded yet? Can we be candid? How many people have ontological problems? How many people own a Ouija board? Anybody have a Ouija board? I was recently in the Midwest, and I went into this toy store. I was with my nephew. I wasn't just me looking for toys, but I took my nephew in. In the back corner, they had 3 Ouija. Let me ask, do people know what Ouija boards are? I mean, anybody not know what a Ouija board is? Anybody not know? 1, 2, all right. It'll become clear here in a moment. Ouija boards, help me if I haven't played it in a long time. Flat boards have the alphabet on it, yes, no on it, and then you get this little pad that you put your hands on with another person. I guess you can do it by yourself, but I've always done it with other people. And you just start to let the Ouija board talk to you. You ask questions because it's a contact to the spirit world, right? Now, how many people have ever gotten spooked out by Ouija boards? How many? Hold your hands up. Let's just all be honest. How many people get spooked out by Ouija boards? You've got ontological problems. You have no idea, but you've got one huge ontological problem, you 17th century people, right? So ontology has to do with what exists. What is all of this stuff around us, right? And this thing that we're going to talk about today is where all of these just perplex me. So I'm hoping with all of you here who are still students, maybe I just missed the solution, somebody's already come up with it, you don't get the Nobel Prize, and you could tell me what it is. Okay, are we all on target? Heading in the same direction? All right, then let me tell you briefly before we start this why I have issues. And then we'll see as we pull this in. For those of you who've had philosophy, how many people here have ever heard of this guy called Socrates? Want you heard of that guy? Everybody. Anybody want to say one little thing they know about Socrates? What was that? He's a philosopher, Greek philosopher, long time ago.
Was he also like a war hero?
He was recognized for his service in the military and for bravery. Do you have any idea?
He's extremely ugly.
Very ugly. Turned up nose.
Didn't he teach Plato, who wrote the Allegory of the Cave?
Yeah, he was Plato's teacher. Didn't write anything himself, right? But there was a saying at the time that came from the Oracle of Delphi that he adopted as one of his key models, which was know thyself. It's got to start there. You got to know thyself. So part of all of this is right at the crux of you just knowing yourself. So I would suspect at this point that if you get spooked by a Ouija board, you may not know yourself very well, right? So we want to start to sort this out in some way. So for me, when I was your age and I was first going to college and doing all of this, I was what was known as I learned, a substance dualist. This is where I started. I was raised Catholic, right? And for me, the whole point of life was to be good. That was a challenge, right? And so if you were good, if you followed those rules, by the Great Spirit, then you'd go to heaven for eternal salvation. How many people have heard that story before? All right? Oh, yeah. All right? Well then, and I didn't know I was a substance dualist. And I think what you find in the world of philosophy, when you start learning about philosophy, you realize all of us have a variety of philosophical assumptions we operate on. But until the time that you start doing philosophy, you don't know how to pull them out. You don't know how to deal with them. And you may not know what they are, right? Kind of like diet. You grow up in a family, you have a certain diet, and you eat. You may not know what the biochemistry of any of that food is, what its nutritional value is, any of that stuff. But then you start to learn some of that stuff and you go, oh my gosh, I think I've got to stop eating all those chips. You know, my family's diet wasn't particularly good, so I need to shift. You'll find that in your philosophy. So what we want to do now is try to bring out, know yourself. Who are you? Are you a dualist? So basically, as a dualist, in terms of ontology, what things exist, I thought I was two things. I thought I was a body and a soul. Right? People have heard those terms before? And that this soul, at some time, will leave the body when it perishes. And if I've been good, I'll go to heaven. If I've been bad, I'll go to Isla Vista. Right? For a lifetime, eternal. To wander Del Playa, Posado, Trigo, endlessly, finding all those empty kegs. No, another empty keg. So I thought I was these two things. Back when I was in college, we didn't have jihadist, right, the way we do today. So I might have been tempted to convert because for them, if they die in battle, where do they go? Paradise, right? What do they get? Think about it. Anyway, back to this. So then I was this dualist. And then I went to college. Then I started studying. And I got to modern philosophy. How many people had a modern philosophy class? You have? Are you teaching modern philosophy?
Contemporary.
Contemporary? Another great class. Chris Kramer, contemporary philosophy instructor here. Take contemporary. We're going to talk about some contemporary stuff. And you go over some of this stuff in contemporary?
Yeah.
Perfect. What?
Coincidentally, next week.
Oh, go visit class. Check out. Do you have room for them to visit and check it out? Oh, where's the class? Do you know the classroom? What is it? BC?
WCC.
The water closet?
118.
WC 118?
It's a new building.
WT?
CC, West Campus Center, WCC. It is kind of like a water park.
Yeah.
So what do you call next week's section? Philosophy of mind? Oh, philosophy of mind. There you go. So if you have questions, you can ask Chris, follow up, and I'm sure he'll participate. So here I am. I start taking my psychology classes, and back in the modern period, you'll find that things kind of disappear now and then, what I thought was so obvious. And so in particular, during that period, one thing that disappeared by the late 1700s was the soul. Now, let that go. That's an illusion. That is an epistemological illusion. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And then before I know it, I became, shortly thereafter, a materialist. All that stuff was gone, that soul stuff. I'm a physical being in a physical world. No ghost in the machine, just risen ape. That's me. Well, then I continued to learn and look at the world. Then I became a property dualist. We'll talk about this. So these aren't all compatible with each other. They don't go together. So all of this is kind of shifting for me in my life. And then today, as I come in here, I am simply confused. I honestly do not know. I don't know what I am exactly. I got an idea of who I am. That may be a little easier, but that's a tough one as well. But what I am, So, let's start back here. And let's think about this in the context. How many people have heard of Descartes? René Descartes. How many people have heard of William Shakespeare? All right, more people have heard of Shakespeare than Descartes. Well, Shakespeare is this, but I don't know if he knows it. But he puts it in a very fancy kind of way. Let me see if I can pull it out of the recesses of my neurons. And I'm not sure how my neurons do this, right? Somehow my neurons have this information, right? And now I think my axons are going to start pushing stuff out to the dendrites. The dendrites are going to start getting it. The synaptic cleft is going to get hot, neurotransmitters. And what comes out is to be or not to be. That is the question, but not today. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take up arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep no more. And by sleep we say to end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks to which flesh is heir. 'Tis a consummation to be devoutly wished, to die, to sleep. Well, I'm not finished. Shrouded. Sleep. Let's see, where was I? So present to sleep. Oh God, I lost the line of it. To sleep, perchance to dream. What dreams may come once we have shuffled off this mortal coil. So one moment, I'm dead. I'm free of all the torment of existence. No more. But what happens if in that sleep of death, once I have shuffled off this mortal coil, that must give us pause. That's the pause I want to talk about. What is that pause? Why would I pause? People know the rest of that soliloquy? What bothers Hamlet? What bothers Hamlet at this point is he is tormented. How does that play open? He sees or what's reported being seen. His father's ghost. So his father's ghost is reported. Now he has this problem, to be or not to be. That is the question. Should I suffer it? Should I oppose it? Do I carry on? Why do I do this? Because no traveler returns from that country beyond. So we're going to put up with this. We don't know what lies after this. Now, that means that there've got to be two things going on here. Somehow, you've got a dead body, but this dead body, what dreams may come in its sleep? Now, as I thought about this, I realized, none. That's not going to happen. dead brains don't dream, do they? Could a dead brain dream? I don't think so. So then I'm thinking, I think it's probably just over. And so as you start to look at this, I start to realize, well, during this period, actually, for me, leaving that period, I can say I am rather confident that there are not on this planet mermaids. Anybody here with me? How many people know mermaids? How many people, what about leprechauns? What about spriggans? How many people have ever had to deal with spriggans? How many people ever wake up in the morning and your hair's knotted? Has that ever happened to anybody? Anybody ever found something like a bruise on your leg or something? You don't know where you got it? It's from spriggans. They're mischievous little fairies. And if your room is a mess, or you don't leave water out for them, or, as I always have for 20 years, carried a tuppence, an English tuppence, 2 pence, because they like tuppence, right? That's the only way you can deal with spriggans. How many people are worried about spriggans? Nobody, right? And I'm not, and on an equal footing, I am not concerned about ghosts. There are no ghosts, there's no spirit world, there are no souls. I'm pretty sure that that's true ontologically. And I think I know that. It's still moderately disturbing psychologically, given my upbringing. But that is the view in the middle period there. And in the case of property dualism, we'll see you don't get back your soul or spirit or ghost. So for me, in the world, those things are gone. But what I don't understand at this point is how it is that this guy could have these dreams. Let's say he's in the forest. And let's say a tree fell. Does it make a sound in your dream? Maybe. So, let me ask you this. How many people have ever heard of the play Macbeth? Macbeth has a problem as well. I said I wanted to talk about dreams and hallucinations. What's Macbeth's problem? Well, he's gotten himself in a whole lot of trouble thanks to that wife of his, right? But there appears a dagger in front of him, and its handle is pointed toward him. And he reaches out to get the dagger, but there's nothing there. His vision tells him there's a dagger. His touch tells him there's nothing. Oh, fatal vision. What happens now? What is that thing? All right? So here we know that not only in the case, well, this is dreaming. Let's call this dreaming. But we know also that here's poor Macbeth, right? Who now has, I don't even know if I can draw a dagger in front of him. How many people are thinking Raphael? Titian? Come on, Leonardo? So, or Caravaggio, that's more me. So, here's Macbeth, who has this, well, actually I shouldn't draw it like that, should I? Actually, it should be like this. If this is our experience, then what's happening to Macbeth in his experience is that he sees this dagger, right? But there's nothing out here. He has a hallucination, but it's not part of the world. It's part of consciousness. So now the question becomes for us, whoops, can you put that brain back up? Did we lose it? Oh, now we gotta let it warm up. Well, we'll describe it, right? We got this brain, has all this activity, 3 pounds of neurons all packed together. Well, there are now billions of neurons and trillions of connections, right? Anatomically, all very similar, right? In terms of dendrite, axon, cell body, and the nucleus of the cell, all that kind of stuff. And the brain is mostly what? Gray matter, white matter?
A lot of fat.
A lot of what?
A lot of fat, especially omega-3 fatty acids.
Lots of fats. That's white matter? What should we call it? Fat or white matter, you think? Kind of like the ring of white matter?
Well, I would argue that the fats in question are particularly white matter.
Oh, there you go. So all the stuff we know about the brain, right? So the question becomes, oh, here, see, it's coming in. Now, here's an awake brain. Here's a sleep brain. Now, as you look at this, maybe we could drill down. Where's the dream? Where is the forest? Not what are the axons and dendrites doing, unless are they a picture? Do you have what's sometimes referred to as the Cartesian theater? I mentioned Descartes, right? Descartes was a contemporary of William Shakespeare's, right? Shakespeare was born in 1564, Descartes in 1596. Our ancestors in Europe at that time were dualists. Substance dualists. There are still a lot of substance dualists. How many people here would identify as a substance dualist? One. Come on, we need at least one more. Have two. Oh, good. We have two dualists. I thought it was kind of funny. How many people here are materialist? Just one thing. It's just matter. To borrow from the good Thomas Hobbes, it's matter in motion. Energy out there. Quarks, strings, whatever. Stuff. And it comes together and makes us, right? Then it dissipates. We go away. More stuff comes. More stuff goes, right? Materialist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now between the dualist and the materialist, somebody's wrong. I don't want to make it too personal, but somebody has a false belief. Anybody? How many people just don't know? I don't know what I am. Well, let's go back to the Greeks. So much misfortune is rooted in ignorance. You know, and you can ask yourself, would you blow yourself up as a materialist in order to go to heaven? That doesn't work that way. You just blew yourself up, right? You're not going anywhere. You killed yourself. But now dualists don't believe that, right? Especially the substance dualist. Property dualists might believe that. We'll talk about this. But substance dualists, they may believe, because they also think this thing inside of them, this soul, can live without the body. It could be that it's so attached that you kill one, you kill the other. But it might be that it could exist independently. But then within this particularly the West, the Judeo-Christian tradition, they always add immortality to it. Where do they get that? Where did that come from? Are they right? Or is this just old ways of thinking, part of our old-time religion? All right? So, here we have this brain sleeping. Is this a dream state? You know, should I have to ask that question if this is dreaming? Why would I ask that question? Can you just look at a brain and know what it is? Or do you need some sort of report? And what's that report come from? Wake up, Shakespeare. Wake up, Shakespeare. What were you doing? Well, I was dreaming about a forest. I was in a forest. This, importantly, in order for us to get at this seems to require a first-person narrative. This doesn't, this table, right? So again, for poor old Macbeth here, now his senses aren't working. Vision is telling him right in front of me is a dagger. I just reach out, the handle is turned toward me. I reach out and nothing. Which sense are you going to trust? But for us, it's not so much poor Macbeth's situation, what's going on. How does this exist? How is this related to this? And it's not just hallucinations. It's not just dreaming, it's what's going on right now. How is it that you have a three-dimensional world of medium-sized dry goods? Do you think crickets have that? Pretty sure my dog doesn't. I don't know what world my dog lives in. He's always smelling stuff. And the way he greets other dogs, I'm so glad we got over that as Homo sapiens. But again, you know, he gets around through smell. That seems to be one of his dominant senses. For us, the occipital lobe, man, vision. So let's just tell a story. I think Karen's going to come up and tell me do this, aren't you? Yeah, let's do this. You want to turn that off? We'll raise the so we're right in the middle. Because she's going to tell me about collapsing wave functions. All right, so where should we want to we'll just deal with vision. Then we can deal with the olfactory and the auditory and all that stuff. So where should we start? Let's start with the head. Your average student. We'll give some here. This could be you. Okay. Okay, are we all good now? Everybody's okay? We're humans. That's a human. I know it stretches your epistemology, but just imagine. Right, so here's a human. So then we have the world. Would you want to call it a physical world?
Yes.
Okay. Let's call it a physical world. The physical world. Okay. Tell us the story of. So how does vision work? Do you want to start with the tree?
The tree, sure.
Okay. Let's start with the tree.
You got this, Karen.
What?
She's got it.
Moral support.
Yeah. All right. We can check the art. Anybody tell what kind of tree this is? Pine tree. Thank you. Would you say redwood? Yeah, okay. Godzilla? Redwood? Okay. So let's say we have this tree in the physical world. So what happens?
Well, the light from the sun comes down, and certain wavelengths are absorbed by this particular material, in this case, the leaves. Other wavelengths are reflected, and that's actually what we're seeing. Because light comes in the full spectrum, Roy G. Biv, and a rainbow. It absorbs everything except for this green, which bounces off into your eyes.
Hold on before I go too fast here,
Sorry.
because I'm a little slow on all of this here. I had to take this step by step. So, given the molecular structure here, it will either absorb a certain, so for example, if it was this one, let's make it wavy,
Okay.
then it may just absorb.
Correct.
But if it was like this one, then it may go, ooh, right?
Yep.
So this one, because it's different, it'll have a different wavelength, right?
Correct.
This one would probably tend to be longer since it's in the reddish side of things.
Indeed,
And this would tend to be a little shorter in nanometers.
Correct.
Okay, so we have basically a whole lot of electromagnetism. Whole lot of EM, like crabs at the bottom of a little pool, right, surrounded by water. We're just surrounded by electromagnetism. Okay, right? And you can shut it off. Close your blinds. What do you see? Nothing. But you can't, but you don't hear electromagnetism, right? Air vibrations, but that's another story that we could get to that one as well.
Still waves, but it.
Still waves. Yeah, and you're into waves, collapsing waves. All right, this is for auditory. All right, so then electromagnetism, when your eyes are functioning open, what happens?
Goes in and hits the back of your eye with the rods and cones. And with the rods, that shows, that's mainly the light and dark as well as movement. The cones are for color, what we know of as color.
Are they? How many different colors are they? Are they like a painter's palette?
Isn't it just red, green, and blue?
So if we examine the cones, we will see red ones, green ones, and blue ones.
Absolutely not.
Well, what color are they?
I believe it'd be a fleshy.
Fleshy? Okay.
Possibly.
So these are fleshy colors. But when you say red, blue, green,
That's
you
the-
mean fleshy. Given their anatomy, they will react to different wavelengths.
To the red, green, and blue wavelengths at just the right frequency. Like I was saying, the certain wavelength will trigger these cones, fleshy colored cones in rod, to produce a neurotransmitter, which then goes through the optic nerve, goes all the way to the back of your head.
The occipital, and if you feel the bump on the back of your head, it's where your occipital lobe is. If the person right behind you would kindly hit you in the head with their book, you'll kind of see stars, won't you? If you hit it really hard. So let's all hit each other in the back of this Monty Python moment. Okay, so then it gets stimulated back there in your occipital lobe, which is made up of these sorts of things. Neuron, right? You got a cleft here, and then another little dendrite over here, right? Cell body, dendrite, axon. And can we also describe these? These are either white or gray, right? Or do we want to give them that fleshy color? White or gray? Do they come in both?
Gray pinkish.
What
Gray.
is
Gray pinkish.
gray pinkish? Oh, good. Gray pinkish. Okay.
Okay, so once it goes back there, it runs through several different visual processing areas. So it's not just occipital lobe. It goes, I forget the actual order of it, but it goes to the first visual processing, and then the second, and then it goes to the thalamus, and then it relates everything back to your frontal lobe, where you're actually like, oh, that could be a color. Oh, wait, first it averages back here. So it's not just red. It takes up all these different frequencies, averages them together to produce this color that we perceive. And then we actually then, at that point, we get an idea that maybe it's a color. Could be a red. That sound about right?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Don't sit down. So, I want to get back. Okay. So let's ask ourselves then, what about Macbeth? Now Macbeth seems to have, what was that sword? Yellow. Seems to have this going on. Can I put a little bubble behind him here for experience?
Perception.
Or perception. You like, you
That's
prefer
not
that? Okay, this is sensation
Yeah, this is, yeah.
and this is perception.
How we perceive
All
it
right.
to be.
So here's our perception of that dagger, and here's our story of sensation, right? Electromagnetism. All right? There's a part of me that wants to know, how does this do that? How do I get a sword out of the neurons?
Well, the neurons are just the chemicals, correct?
Okay,
So you
But
just
they're-
need the chemicals to produce that. You
but
don't-
I have a gold sword. You told me these are kind of gray pinkish, and this is fleshy. Where's the gold?
It's in the neurotransmitters.
There's gold in the neurotransmitters,
The perception of gold.
but the perception itself, how does it relate to the neurotransmitter? How is it that this conglomeration in the occipital lobe makes me think that the world has something in it like a sword? How do neurons dream? Can one neuron dream? Could two neurons dream? Three neurons dream? What?
It would be very simple, because the complexity of a dream must be proportionate to the complexity and number of connections between neurons. And after all, going back to what you said about the nature of images in the brain, well, here's the thing. When you play a video game, does the environment of your game really exist? Or is it just a bunch of bits in your computer and a bunch of signals?
But how does it exist for you? No, for your computer, I think you're exactly right. Just pixels being fired. But for you, you got to chase down that bad guy and blow him up. But that's you now, up here, not over here. Your computer's over here, but your computer's not even over here. It's not that complicated. This is more, I think the brain is more complicated than our average computer today.
Well, yes, it is clearly a lot more complicated. It's more complicated than any file system, and I think it's more complicated than even any supercomputer today. But I'm pretty sure the operating principles are either the same or very similar when it comes to the question of dreaming. And I would argue that the environment of a video game is analogous to a dream in your mind when you sleep.
Does the video game itself, what is going on for it?
As far as the game is concerned, there's an environment, there are NPCs.
But for the game itself, does it have any sense of, as in Macbeth's case, I have this sword in front of me? Video games don't have a sense that games are running, do they? They just running binary code?
No, the writer of the video game programmed in
Yeah.
entities, digital entities to come alive and die and interact.
That's right. That's right. That person programmed that all in, but for the video game, there's nothing going on.
No, all those entities, those digital entities are interacting.
That's right. That's right. But, well, for example, let me give you a very simple case. How many people have ever had the experience here, being on a bicycle or a skateboard or whatever, where you're about to eat it? You're going down and you're going down hard, right? There's nothing you can do about that. What is it like for the bicycle? What is it like for your skateboard?
They're not sentient because they do not have any power.
Same thing with the computer.
They can't anticipate the future.
No, same thing with the computer, though. There's nothing going on for a computer.
Well, I would argue that at a certain level of complexity, a computer can think, we just haven't reached that level of development yet. Already, we have been able to replicate the most basic forms of thinking in robots. I mean, we have machines whose cognitive capacity is at the levels of, say, insects. But it's going to be a long time before we have anything at, say, our level.
Let me ask you this. Here's the question that came up recently in another talk I was watching. This fellow said, you know, we can build these fascinating robots now where they could maybe even clean your house, some of them, or they'll be able to walk upstairs, or sometimes the way they cross the terrain of Mars. The amazing stuff that they do. What would we do to program in dreaming? Because the one element that we haven't talked about yet in here, for us, is that not only is there consciousness, which I think has a really complicated history or relationship to what is not conscious. And again, I'm not going to go the way of Descartes and others, say the brain causes this. And some people even think that this can cause the brain to do certain things. That there's something like free will. How many people believe in free will? Really? Like you're responsible for stuff? Like digestion? So, not only is there this that's going on, but I want to say, I see the sword. Where am I? Look at your experience you're having right now. Now, again, what Karen said, we really need to change this up a little bit, I think. Let me make it a little more accurate. I think this will be, now that we've got fleshy neurons. I think,
Again, that's just perception of color. What are they really?
yeah.
They're just electromagnetic waves bouncing off. The world around us is soundless and colorless.
Electromagnetism has no color.
No.
As we understand it, it's in different wavelengths, right? Those wavelengths, as she pointed out, get absorbed or reflected, and they come to my sensory surface. At my sensory surface, they stimulate my fleshy stuff. Right? My fleshy stuff gets stimulated sufficiently. If it's insufficient, because I have a long day down here today. I had to get up this morning at 5:30. How many people were up at 5:30 this morning? Was it light or dark? Dark. I go outside, and I live in a beautiful area. See all the beautiful colors. Nothing. There's no colors. There's not enough stimulation. Not enough electromagnetism yet. And lo and behold, in the east comes electromagnetism. And things start to turn green and brown, shades of blue and orange and all this stuff. It's not out here. It's here. because none of this stuff has the color. So the question is, how do non-visual, non-colored stuff like the brain here cause this? Now, it could be, as some people say, it's an emergent property, right? Sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Right? How many people have heard that before? How many people have studied logic? You know, fallacy of composition, fallacy of division, going between collections and parts. You know, just because every part of a car is light doesn't follow that the car is light. Right? So again, wholes can acquire properties that pieces may not have. Maybe all these parts don't have color. Right? They don't have, there's not color here. There's no sword in any of this. You look at you look at a brain, and was it an fMRI that you had? An fMRI image of a brain like that. You don't see any dreams. You just see these things going wah, 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 wah. Right? There's no dream. Right? So the question is then, if this is an emergent property, the brain causes this, then the question comes to you, if there is phenomenal consciousness, there are phenomena. Our dreams come to us in pictures. When you dream, how many people have ever had dreams, maybe a couple of people here, when you dreamt of just neurons firing? You ever had a dream like that? Just, oh my God. Hundreds of millions of neurons firing. Right? And you look at the painters of dreams. Like, how many Salvador Dali fans do we have? You look at his painting of dreams. Why doesn't he just paint neurons? Why doesn't he just paint that? Because they do something else. That's why, at this point, there's this kind of dualism coming back. This, your experience, the claim is your experience you're having now is phenomenal. And you study the history of philosophy, hang out with Chris for a while, I mean, people have argued that even the portion of your experience right now about space and time are not out here, they're parts of this. And quantum physics is really mixing this stuff up with the observer right now. So if you walk out of here and look at the world and go, oh, what a beautiful day, look at the ocean, it's so blue. It's so wonderful, oh, the warm breeze. That's just you. You're not talking about the world. You're talking about you, right? And if you add some vulgarity to it, motherfucker, look at that shit, man. Now you're not even adding any cognitive content. You're just emoting, right? So we have all of this going on. We have something rich, like being in a forest. So the question is going to become one. You have brain. You have phenomenal experience. The claim is the brain causes this, but at this point there looks to be what's referred to as this explanatory gap. How do you go from something that has no color to something, that seems to possess color? I'm breaking up all your chalk here. How does that happen? That's why I came here today. So you would tell me, all you scientists. How does that happen? How do you get, and we haven't even talked about this yet. I am aware. I am not this experience. I am aware of this experience. And shortly, this experience will change for me. And I will go out to lunch. And I will have other conversations in a restaurant. But I, the claim is, I remain. I am Joe. Joe with issues. I'm still here, as are my issues, apparently, unless you solve this. So here I am. What part of this is this? Who are you? Come on. You're the students. You study this stuff. No, nobody? Have we bumped up against ignorance?
Well, the current neuroscience today isn't fully able to explain the phenomena of the brain causing all the exact phenomenal experience, but at least through, with such things such as psychological drugs, we know that through the alteration of neurotransmitters in the brain, and we know that it's affecting the brain, a physical thing, that can also affect our phenomenal experience. So we can also say that perhaps it is at the brain that's causing it.
Yeah, and so in some cases, some people refer to that as, I think Chalmers calls it the easy problem, doesn't he? So you have both an kind of easy problem, which involves correlation. So again, you know, as Karen pointed out, the occipital lobe is located back here. It's primary for vision, but not complete. You need other parts of the brain functioning as well. You looked at the fMRI of a waking brain and a sleeping brain, right? So the easy problem is let's figure out all these correlations. If I start to develop a certain something or other in my brain, I will develop Alzheimer's. My memory will be affected, right? And so just a moment ago, I had to get my brain fired in some sort of memory zone stuff to pull up that soliloquy of Hamlet, right? But again, if you were just watching my brain, you have no idea I was thinking about Hamlet. You have no idea. That is in some sense private, right? So part of the claim too here is that not only is this first person information, but it's private. Even the claim that you have privileged access. This is public. And some of us know much more about this than others know, right? It's not privileged. I mean, other than you can't kill someone. Well, I guess you could. But we look at brains. They're open, accessible, right? We're just trying to go from here to here and understand how this does this. That there are correlations. If there are let me do this. If there are correlations, it suggests there's one, two things. And this is how they come together. Okay. And so I think if you study contemporary philosophy, and see if you agree with this, it'd be very rare to find a philosopher who's a substance dualist. Do you know of any? Other than religious philosophers?
Yes.
There's that one in England.
They're not well known.
No. And one time it was prominent. Not without its problems, but right now, that's why ghosts, spirits, disembodied consciousness, gods, angels, yeah. Leprechauns, Santa Claus, Easter Bunny. Right? Ontologically, clean it up. Right? Pardon? What?
Think about this talking snake, a flying horse, and a magic monkey.
A magic monkey?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it also belongs in the same bucket.
I'm
sure you know where talking snake and flying horse are from.
The flying horses.
So the flying horse is from Islam, the talking snake is
Oh.
from Christianity and Judaism, and the magic monkey is from Hinduism.
Oh, well, there you go. Do those things exist, you think?
No, I said all of them. I said all of those things that don't exist also belong in the same bucket as magic
Okay.
monkey, talking snake, and the flying horse.
There you go. So I'll add magic monkey to it and flying horse. And then there's that special serpent that, or whatever it was, that Mohammed was on when he went to Jerusalem. When was
That
that?
actually was a flying horse.
Oh, that was? What were you going to say?
Would you still be a substantive dualist if you didn't think that there were like other entities outside of materialism, but you thought it was a good idea to act as if there were?
Would it be a good idea to act as if there were?
Like the belief in like a soul. So like if you
Sure.
have no evidence for it, but pretending it's real is good.
Sure, that's why I say even here. I mean, there are psychological issues. This takes us into philosophy, right? These are philosophical areas. But there are all kinds of psychological issues, right? And again, when you go into a philosophy class, you should be warned because it'll go to the foundation of your conceptual system. And it's not like a science class necessarily. I mean, you're going to go and try to figure out, where are we in terms of Homo sapien thinking at this time? And it's just not suited for everybody. Not everybody should do this, right? And so there may be a lot of comfort. I'll vouch for my family. As I was raised Catholic, and my one brother still remained a very pious Catholic. And it really serves him well. It gives him a community. He got a framework for his kids and all that stuff. I think he's still ontologically out to lunch, but we don't talk about it. Right? It's just his way of life. Live in America. Freedom, rights. So, somebody else, did I see a hand go up over here? Oh, there you go.
So I've always heard this thing that said, in your dreams, your brain can't create something that you've never actually seen before. Everything that you perceive in your dreams is either something you've seen before, or it's a combination of different. And from a biological perspective, I know that like memories are formed through visual experiences that we've had. So how does that come into play with this? It's like a personal experience that you've had, but
let me say something about the psychology of it. About 10 years ago, when I was still teaching on campus, actually in this room, I probably taught in this room for 20 years, I had a dream. And I was, at that time, not even thinking about retiring. But I had this dream that I was in my 90s. And my office used to be on West Campus, so I'd walk across the bridge to come to classes over here. And I was 90 years old, and you know, I think the way, as you walk to East Campus, there's a slight slope to the bridge, right? And so I was coming across, and this old man, and I was walking. I got to the middle of the bridge where you get the gazebo or whatever that is, and I was walking. It was a beautiful day, and the students were busy on the bridge. And I walked around, I got out of the rush. I just wanted to stand there and watch the students go by and the ocean for a minute before I walked on. And this cute little co-ed came over and she said, "Sir, are you lost?" I said, "No, I know my way around." She goes, "Okay, do you need anything?" I said, "No, I'm good." And then I woke up. Now, that dream had just lingered with me. Because now I'm retired. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been staying away from the bridge. I don't want to have that experience. But here was something probably had to do with my memory or my anticipations. And it was very riveting in a sense for me to have that dream when I woke up. I went, oh my gosh, my future's coming at me. Right? Oh geez, I gotta work till I'm 70. Well, that didn't last. And so here's this whole image that's provocative of my life, right? And as people, psychologists, I think, who study dreams and interpret dreams, they'll tell you, when you have a dream, you are every character in that dream. So there are ways of reading that dream. What's the affect when you wake up? Were you angry? Were you sad? Were you joyful? We can understand this dream. Somehow, something about you is just being given you, right? That's not a philosophical issue. That's a psychological issue. And it's important. I would encourage you, record your dreams. Find people who want to talk about your dreams. You can learn all kinds of stuff from your dreams. But that's not the philosophical problem. The problem is, if you are, let's say, a hardcore neuroscientist, as some of them will talk, you're a materialist. Or maybe a more contemporary term would be a physicalist. It's the brain. What I'm suggesting, and I may be wrong about this, is that there is this too. There are two things going on here, and they're causally related. But nobody has come up with a sufficient explanation how that happens. Now, within this world, there are those that are going to say, it's just one of those things. Keep pushing. And maybe you're the one that gets the Nobel Prize. How many people here have never had a dream? And when we talk about it, we never talk about it in terms of neurons. But it's always that other stuff, maybe the psychology of it. Now, on the other hand, there are those that will say, this gap will never close. We've hit a limit to neuroscience. Neuroscience, being about the brain and all of this, is always couched within the third person. and it's public. And there's that kind of open access. But this, again, this tends to be essentially, perhaps, first person. There's a subjective quality to it, and we'll see in a minute, qualia, and it's private. And no amount of looking at a brain will give you access to it. It has to be reported to you, which presently other people take this to have ontological implications. Something is going on here with this thing, with this brain. And it is so bloody peculiar. Now, people who say there will be no explanation are sometimes called I think this is it, unconstructive naturalist. Is it unconstructive or non-constructive? Heard this? Colin McGinn has been described this way.
Mysterious.
What? Yeah, there you go. That's the more popular word. Mysterianism. Which is the claim that there's nothing wild and spooky going on here. It's just that when you look at how Homo sapiens think, we have a very rich, growing vocabulary, language, for doing science. And it just keeps expanding, and it gets smaller and smaller and bigger in so many vast ways, just in terms of the brain itself. I mean, the amazing stuff going on that Karen lets in on. But then there's all this other stuff. It's not accessible to science the way the methods of science are practiced now. It's beyond the realm of science. And it could be the exciting thing about your lives right now, which are uniquely exciting. I have never in my entire life lived through a Trump era, right? But you are experiencing something so unique, it's incredible. But you're also at this point where this sort of stuff is coming down and going, whoa, have we hit the boundaries of science? We thought that science would tell us about reality. Oh no, there are some really important facts in the world. Not going to get them. Can't do that. And yet it's the closest thing to us. All of us, in some sense, know what it's like to be conscious. Right? We know there are all these fascinating issues as you go up and down the phylogenetic scale. Right? Apes seem to share a lot with us. They even have a sense of reciprocity, equality, and exchanging things. Right? But as you start to go down, you go, well, less. What's it like to be a butterfly? You ever just sat down and watched butterflies? You know, what is that like? Do they flip along? Going, oh my God, I love California. I like living on the Central Coast. Check out these orange wings. I'm a monarch. They do that? They have any inner dialogue?
They don't have the capacity for it.
No, they don't. So let me ask you this. How many of you ever daydream? Daydream. How many of you say you have fertile imaginations? All right? So how many of you, if you're just looking up here, sitting here quietly, how many of you could, and I think this is a metaphor, but we'll see. How many of you could picture your mother? You can picture your mother, right? Now hold that picture, right? So is my arm over her shoulder?
No.
No? How about this? This behind her head? Where is she? Do you literally have a picture? Or is that just a slip in language? Kind of like, well, let me ask you this, something else. How many people have ever been to see the sunset? Anybody here ever seen the sunset? Nobody. You've seen the earth rotate, right? The sun's not setting. The earth is rotating. Is it possible? Oh, let me ask you about daydream, if you like to daydream. How many of you ever just sit in the classroom looking out the window Just get lost in the daydream. Are there pictures running in front of you? That's what you say. I'd ask you to back up and look closely at that experience. Is it possible that all of this doesn't happen? You don't dream visually. Hallucinations aren't pictures before you in your experience. You're just a brain firing. Is that possible? And if you want to hold on to your visual dreaming, your hallucinations, or your wonderful, colorful world here, all somehow caused by your fleshy gray pinkishness, how does that work? So which way are you going to go? Property dualist? There is something very peculiar going on here that the brain causes. Or is it just the brain? Who are you? I really want to know. And don't sit there like this. So what do you think? Dualists? Do we have any dualists? Do we have any materialists? And materialists, actually in the world of philosophy, they're considered monists. There are different types of monism. Homo sapiens have thought that there's just one thing, a universe. Not a multiverse, but a universe. We have one verse. All right? We may not know quite what it is, but it's stuff that comes together and falls apart. Right? Just that in our part of the world at this time, we talk about things like atoms and quarks and strings and stuff like that. You want to say something?
Yeah, can you help explain the difference what you just said with the, what if it's just the brain? Because, you know, before when you were both explaining, you know, how we even see things, you were saying it as though we're not, those things aren't actually, you know, there, those colors aren't actually there, that's just your brain. Then you ended it with, what if it's just your brain? But wasn't it your brain firing? But I thought you were on that page the entire time.
That's, actually, I'm right here. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly. I mean, I'm not like, tell us next week. I don't know how it works.
No, but
Now, I find that a little exciting, but unnerving.
But what did you mean by the difference between...
Well, what strikes me is, yeah, where the question mark is.
Yeah.
What strikes me is that if you ask people to use their imagination, and you say, and you use metaphors like picture this, or you tell people like you were on my mind, that is kind of this language, but applied to the mind. So then when you picture your mother, you know, if you actually literally held up a picture of your mother and said, okay, I'm looking at my mother, and I'd say, is my arm over? See, I can't see. You're blocked by the picture, right? But in your imagination, when you have a picture, it's like, well, where's my arm? Well, it's not like that. How many people have ever been across the Golden Gate Bridge? How many people could picture the Golden Gate Bridge? Are you sure it's not one of the pyramids? You're sure about that? You're sure it's not a skyscraper, but you got the Golden Gate Bridge. You got it? Okay, count the vertical cables in your picture. If you had a picture of it, you go, oh, all of them? It was like painting it, 1, 2, 3. You could do that. But when we talk about pictures, phenomena in some sense, in our head, are we just speaking metaphorically? And we really have gotten fooled. Perhaps in a way that Ptolemy was fooled. Right in the 1st century AD, here comes this brilliant mathematician out of Alexandria, Egypt, who says, look, we've been tracking the planets. Planet is a Greek word which means wanderer, right? Because the planets don't follow the starry firmament, right? You follow the starry firmament, you get the seasons and all of that. So now you've got these planets. Well, how is everything going around us like this? They seem to go back and forth. Well, they're on epicycles. All right? Well, that kind of saved that geocentric universe. The Earth is at the center. This is what everything's doing. We don't believe that anymore. But it took the genius of a Polish priest to be able to say, let's put the sun in the center and look at if we do this and this and this. And now that's where we are. We live in a heliocentric solar system. And we don't believe what Copernicus said, that they orbit in circles. That took Kepler. But at the same time, we had to reconceptualize the world. That's what I'm asking you to do. Come up with humanity's answer here. If you get rid of this and you say, you've been mistaken, the stars don't orbit around the Earth. The planets don't move in epicycles. Take us out of the center and put us the third rock out. Then you get this other system that seems to work in all these other ways. It took a few hundred years to refine it, but that's where we are with this. That's why I come here offering you $1.2 million. How many people have come into your classroom offered you that kind of money? And it may only be a 2-page paper. How long was Gettier's paper? 2 pages? You know, change epistemology. So here you are in college, on the frontier. What's going to happen next? You're the pioneers. I got to sit back in the Conestoga and hang my feet out the back and watch the sunset. But you're the today. What is it? And on top of all of that, next week, you can go see Chris and talk more.
I do have the answers. So.
Oh! And he's been so quiet. To torment of my life. I am Sisyphus. So now you're going to have everybody showing up. I'll be there. Oh, we didn't write the time down. What time is
What time do we meet? Wednesday, 2:20. It really is quite a small room. I should point that out.
Well, you move it out on the lawn. You can move it over to the stadium. If you were overloaded, that's really a good sign. You're going to get busy here, people. Figure this out. So again, if you want to be hardcore, you can deny this. But if there's something in your life and experience that says, nah, it feels like something. It smells like something. Sound has got to be more than air vibration because I hear sound in my dreams. I have visions in my dreams, right? What is dreaming but a hallucination? So we all hallucinate. Those of us who do it during the day have other problems, right? But if you just keep it at night, you'll be okay. As long as this stays stable. But we don't know what that means. And we haven't even talked about the inverted spectrum. Yeah?
So even if you accept, materialism instead, you just throw all that out, doesn't that explanatory gap still remain?
Not if you throw this out, there's nothing to explain.
Well, we still don't know, like you said, when you look at a picture of a brain scan, or from the knowledge that we do have, we still can't know what's going on in their head or what they're thinking.
Because of this?
Yeah, exactly.
So does that ontologically then commit you to some sort of dualism?
No, I feel like you could still be a materialist and think it's all physical, but we're just not there in science yet to know, kind of like how we're just starting in studying genes and stuff. People are starting to pick out the specific combinations that equal something.
And that's
we're not there with picking out.
That's really a good point, which is why I brought up this view. There are those that are going to say, no, the only thing you can do is deal with the scientific language. And the scientific language can't get to this. This is different, ontologically different. And so you need something else. Do we have, and one of the claims is, do we have the concepts available to us that are kind of hybrid first, third person? No, we don't have any concepts like that. So an analogy is drawn is that no matter what you do to a chimpanzee, they're never going to write a play. The notion is referred to as cognitive closure. They're cognitively closed. And you have this experience in classrooms of cognitive closure because it varies from each one of us. How many people are in math classes right now? How many people, if you never had to take a math class again, would never sign up again for a math class? How many people love math? So, it's kind of evenly divided here. Why don't you like math? Is it impossible? And how many people are engineers? Anybody engineer? And what would your experience be if I'd say, okay, now in order to graduate from City College, you need to write a one-act play. It's got to have an arc of character. The dialogue's got to be credible, and you need to perform it here in front of 100 people. Believably. Because if you don't do it believably, we're not going to pass you. How many people would love to do that? We read a play. We got a hybrid, a Renaissance man. Everybody will find their cognitive closure. And the claim is, as a species, we're cognitively closed to experiences that animals that have echolocation have. We don't know what it's like to be a bat, or a shark, or a dolphin.
Blind people that use a cane develop echolocation by tapping their cane.
It's a That's right. It's a variation on what the animals have. I mean, they use our auditory system. They don't have the echolocation system. But you're right. They do that through a kind of echolocation, right? But again, here's a variation on the thought experiment. Suppose you're developing a kind of housing division, right? And there's a school of drafting and decoration that's available to you, but it's not in the state. But all you have to do is send them all the information you want about how you want this housing to look. And then they can design it all the way down to the colors. But the only thing you can tell them is about, the electromagnetism, what frequency. And I want it at 400 nanometers. And I want it at 520 nanometers. And they'll take all this information and they'll create a program and they can send you that, and you have these houses that are all decorated in the right colors, that they're all built to the right specifications in terms of height, width, depth, and everything, right? That this school sent you all of this stuff, all set up. Maybe even they have some sort of printers that they can print out the whole, I don't know how they could, but they send all that information. You go, oh, that's perfect. But all the students that did it were blind. Do they know what this house is finally going to look like? Are they missing something? And this is a variation of what's known as the knowledge argument. That you could know what's going on in a brain. You could know all of that, all the way down to the fine details. Right? You could know, as Karen, just all about the electromagnetism. All about all that. But what is this? That seems to be something over and above the phenomena. There seems to be something that if you're born blind, you're born deaf, no matter how much we tell you about what's going on in your auditory system, you still don't know what sound is. Or you don't know what color is. You have to have the experience. What are you going to say?
I feel like
loud.
You do have like a dream or something, like when you're daydreaming, it's something you like desire. Like for example, like if you miss your mom, like you'll think about her, like a picture of her, and I feel like it just like makes us feel better.
Yeah, but you'd be now you're dealing with these issues, and that's I've got issues there too, right? but kind of what we're dealing with here is what is this and what do I know? What? We don't have another hour? Yes.
So can blind people not dream in color?
I don't know. Anybody here blind? I don't know. My first reaction would be no.
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 Okay, so they dream black. Or then they
Well, I mean, what's an object to a blind person?
If they're congenitally blind, no, but if they had vision at some point, then yeah.
But you're talking about a congenitally blind person, ever since birth, no input. No, I don't know what their dreams are.
Why isn't a causal explanation not enough? Like, why do we need that, like, the explanatory gap to be fully addressed in order to understand, like, phenomenon?
Well, at one point there were all these analogies drawn between, what causes temperature? What is lightning? And they were all analyzing like electromagnetic radiation or mean kinetic energy. So we knew why there was heat, what heat was. I think this is just part of just trying to, maybe just in terms of philosophy, I think this is actually perhaps more useful than string theory. Who cares? I mean, really. You know, in this grand unification theory. Really, you can't get quantum physics and general relativity to work. Who cares? What's going to happen? Nothing, probably.
And even with the deaf person, like, I'm pretty sure, like, if it's a neurological.
What? Oh, hold on. We have one more down here. I think we'll come to you.
Okay. Because I know, like, for certain people who can't hear, if it's due to neurological disease, and if that's able to be treated, then they will be able to hear again. So we understand that there is such a strong correlation between brain and phenomenal experience. So why isn't that a sufficient enough explanation for these kind of phenomena?
Well, let me ask you this. If I did, suppose I took this piece of chalk and I tossed it to you, and you caught a banana. Wouldn't you wonder how that happened? I mean, I just tossed a piece of chalk at you, but you caught a banana. I go, what did you do? You're between us. You must have been involved with this. Did you switch that chalk for a banana? I mean, it'd just be curious, wouldn't it? I mean, when you walk out of this room and you look out at that bright, colorful world, don't you go, why do I see it like this? Why do I see a world of medium-sized dry goods? Why do I see it with this amount of intensity? Well, it's a daytime. I know that. But you might have adapted an optic structure which everything always looked like evening. But we didn't. But it looks like this now. Why? How does it work? That's part of it. Just how does it work? You know, and when you look at so much science, particularly theoretical sciences, even theoretical pure mathematics, what are we going to get out of that stuff? Probably nothing, but we want to know. This, I think, is more urgent than that. Goldbach's last conjecture, we get along well enough without that. Okay, let me come. I thought there was, okay, you were, yeah.
So yeah, back to your point, why is it so important that we know?
Why is there what?
Why is it so important that we know how the mind works, how we perceive things, what something really is going on in the mind when we dream, when we perceive color or sound? I mean, does it matter that much? You said,
Well, for Chris and I it does, because that's how we make a living. But yeah, you may not care. That's okay. I mean, human beings for the longest time knew that the children look like the parents. We look like our parents. We know that when it comes to animal husbandry, you take two healthy animals here, put them together, you're liable to get healthy offspring of a certain sort. How does that work? I don't care, I just need a good horse. You know, I just want a cute kid. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Right? People wanted to know. And then in what, 1952, Watson and Crick went, let's look at DNA. And everybody thought that was pretty useless stuff. Well, let's look at the DNA. Oh, look what we got now. And it's had huge implications. Is that about gene technology? The breakthrough. This, I think, is a bigger breakthrough conceptually. We are plagued at this point as a species. And so we just want to, you know, how does this happen? And some of you just may not care at all. Right? And that's okay. And like some people just don't like philosophy. That's somewhat okay. All right, we had one more person I thought was, yeah, you?
So,
and we'll come over.
if we're both looking at that map right there,
Mm-hmm.
we see that map. But because of my experiences, what I've done prior to this day, what I've learned, studied, I see something different than you would be able to see. Like I see movement in that map, maybe what's underneath, things like that.
You see movement in the map? Yeah, that is different.
I do, because that's what I'm saying. So, because of my experience, my brain causes me to see something slightly different.
Yeah, yeah, maybe even the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't explore that, but yeah, you've probably heard that before, the inverted spectrum argument, where my yellow could be your green, and your green could be her blue, or something like that. That argument, I don't think, is as powerful as some people think it is, and we didn't go through this. we're kind of on the edge of oblivion here. But I encourage you, contemporary philosophy. Take philosophy classes. As I said, for me, this all started in the modern period, which precedes the contemporary period. All right, we have one more over here, then we got to go. Oh, one more in the back, yeah.
So I don't know how other science this is versus maybe being soft science, but from what I've heard, dimethyltryptamine, the compound, has something to do with the way we perceive dreams. I just wanted to ask if you know anything about that interaction in the brain.
No, but I would say that probably you're starting here, and anything you would talk about, was it an amino acid or something?
It's called dimethyltryptamine.
Dimethyl. That's part of this world.
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, and you just want to see, how much of your third person language can you translate into your first person language? How do you take that public phenomena and it becomes private? I mean, that's the kind of gap we're talking about here if it's real. All right, I think we have to quit, don't we? Time to go. Thank you so much.